I spoke with so much energy and enthusiasm that I drained a battery. All right, so I'll jump right back into it. There was a lot of work that was done to also understand the specs of the laptops, like I mentioned, but also the cost of the internet connections for the users. So this all went into determining the needs assessment for the pilot, and that's the approach that we took. Also working with the community on the ground really helped for us to understand the dynamic needs that exist in order to ensure that this was going to be a useful pilot, and to also ensure what the next steps were for the pilot and what the next steps were for everyone that was involved. Now, there was a lot of conversations and a lot of work that we did with Google, and it was very instrumental there with the actual topics that were curated, that we took in account. And so the topics that we worked with the people in India, we had to understand what these people were actually searching but not finding in Indic languages. So this is the gap that we talked about. And these are topics that are locally relevant to the people of India. And these are topics that the community members were interested in writing about. This is a very important point, which made the pilot a lot more enjoyable, and it made the project a lot more enjoyable because it was a very well understood process by all the parties that were involved. By the end of January, we also had, we launched a call for applications for the laptops and for the internet stipend. This is where we coordinated very closely with the leaders, the community leaders, and with CIS. And we also worked with steward committees that were set up to decide which applicants received these resources. At the beginning of March, we launched the writing contest, which ended, as I mentioned, in May. And the winning community were rewarded, or will be rewarded, with a 3-day capacity building training to improve the skills for contribution to Wikimedia projects. I'm now going to pass the mic to Rebecca to share some of the highlights of the pilot.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Sharma from Punjabi Wikimedians. I'm from India, and I would like to share something about Project Tiger from community perspective. So before I continue that, I would like to share a little bit more about how Project Tiger started. It was the project with WMF and Google partnership, and it was with initiative called Next Billion Users. So most of the content online is available in English, but in India there are like 22 wiki communities, and so many regional languages have amazing content on Wikipedia. But the thing is, the online content available in different regional languages is not enough. So in order to bridge the gap, this program was started with collaboration with Google, and the program took place in 2 phases. The first phase is 50 laptops and 44 internet stipends were given to experienced Wikipedia editors, and the second phase was content creation. So Google gave us a list of articles, the most searched articles in the region that people looked for. Apart from that, it was like a national competition between 12 wiki communities, and most importantly, the spirit was just not within the national communities, but within the community as well. So for that, prizes were given within the community members who won for first 3 winners in each month for 3 months in the second phase. And the most relevant thing was that the competition between different communities brought out a great spark, a passion for the competition that had never been seen before in India. So I'd like to share some of the stats. Okay, so there were like 220 participants that took part in Project Tiger from 12 wiki communities, and at the end of 3 months there were 4,466 articles created. And as we look at the stats, in the first week there were 20 participants and around about 46 articles created. But how magical it was that at the end of 3 months, we had 177 participants and 4,364 articles created in 12 different languages. And Bengali Wikipedia started a bit late, so we extended the extended the competition for them for 13 more days. At the end of the competition, we had 4,466 articles, something like that has never been seen in the history of any wiki competition in India before. So that was a tremendous success for us. And at the end of the competition, the winning community was Punjabi community. Yay! And we were able to create about 1,320 articles, and 32 participants took place in the competition for us. So the learning that we had from this competition was that before and during the contest, it's really important that you engage the community members with proper orientation. So we had a Facebook group that we used to engage our editors to encourage them to create more articles each day. So within the community members, there was this, like contest going on, like you created 12 articles, I'm gonna create 15 more. So that really helped with the spirit. And one more important thing I would like to share about any contest, if that can actually be successful is that if there is, teamwork going on, then it creates more impact. So if you give individual incentive, that works well, but if the prize is community, if the community is winning, then it creates much better impact. So for us, the motivation was capacity building workshop that foundation was gonna award to winning community. So we worked really hard to achieve that, and that played a really big motivation factor for us to win. So yeah. Yeah, I'd like to pass the mic to Jnana.
So my name is Jnana. I'm from Odia Wikipedia community. So it was great to be, as Ripika said, it was there was competitions among all the Indian communities that hey, they are writing so many articles and let's write more. And let me say some challenges that we have faced. As Rava mentioned, Jack mentioned. Though we have the intention is to creating enthusiasm in existing Wikipedians to create new articles, but there are more new users that have been signed up and created those articles that have already there. So this was a challenge. And also there are some small challenges though they have tried, Google has suggested and they have tried to list articles that are more local oriented or more localized, but still there are issues there are contents or articles that need to be more localized. So these are small challenges, but overall this is very successful projects, and we're really happy with it. So, Jack, you want to continue there, from there?
Thank you so much. Thank you for that. We have a few more slides, and then we'd like to have enough time for Q&A with the rest of the folks in the room. I wanted to share some of the perspectives from WMF, working, as we said, very closely with all of our partners. And of course, with the work that we did, there were some challenges, but these are challenges that we're going to learn from. And I believe that in potential future types of projects, we'll be able to hedge some of these challenges, especially with certain delays for the actual project to launch. It was delayed a little bit further than we initially wanted to. I think some key learnings we had there is to build that time ahead of schedule in order to really discuss the project timelines with all the parties involved, to ensure that the affiliates and the chapters are all fully aware of what's happening, to have the needs assessment process that I discussed earlier, to have the time for community outreach, and to also ensure that there's the resource delivery time is taken in consideration, especially also determining the topics for the writing contest. So these are some of the learnings that we had from our perspective. But also to have the effective local affiliate chapter partners involved throughout this whole process. It's important to have this strong communication from the beginning. It's important to have people's attention and to also address some of the questions that they had beforehand, to have in-country people that are ready and willing to help and support throughout this process as we continue to potentially scale this up for future opportunities. I'd like to now introduce you to Banks, who is the head of Global Product Partnerships, Search Content at Google. He's here to share a few words with us and to talk to us a little bit about the Project Tiger program from Google's perspective. Thanks.
Thanks, Jeff. And I'll keep this short because I know we want to make space for questions. So, this has been a really exciting program. And I think as we mentioned to a number of folks throughout the week, Google has a commitment to giving open access to information and honestly does believe that society works best when the diverse voices of the people that are in the communities are represented. And the same goes for users online. So if users have access to information online that represents their communities in their voice and their local language, the internet is better. It's just a better place. And it's these beliefs that I think line us up so well with Wikipedia, but also get us so excited about Project Tiger and the promise of Project Tiger. Our approach here was to be a facilitator in the process, was to provide tools and enabling technology and resources. It was not to guide the community in any way. It was to recognize our role in what we can do to support a community so that they can get their own voice represented in the internet as a whole. So, as Rapika and Jack mentioned, super excited about the results. We had a baseline estimate out of the program. We thought maybe we might be able to bridge 2,000 articles. And like you said, we got up to 4,600. So super excited about the program. As we look forward, we are looking at where do we expand the program from here and how do we scale it. So this was a really successful pilot in India. But as you are all aware, there are a lot more communities than what we had in that respective sample in India. There are a lot more emerging markets that are coming online that need to have their voices heard through the perspective and sort of position of their communities. So we've got to figure out how to scale it. So we're working with WMF to understand what that looks like, because as Jack pointed out, there were a number of partners involved. Google, I'll be honest, we played a fairly easy role. We supply hardware, we supply stipends, and we supply insights into where the gaps are in content. We can do that all day long. I think the real question we have now is what else can we do to make sure that WMF and the Wikipedia communities themselves have the resources they need to activate the last mile? And then how does Google do this in a way that ensures that those communities are free of influence? And so, we're very careful to keep that arm's length distance. So we are exploring how to do this on a much broader scale. Google has an appetite to do this on a much broader scale. So we're thrilled. We're super excited by the results. So thank you.
Thank you, Banks. We have 10 minutes for Q&A, for questions. If you're curious about something, if you'd like to learn more about something that we've talked about, please let us know, and we'll try to pass this dead mic, or we can come up, or you can yell.
Okay, so I'm curious for those communities where, because you said you were already addressing people that had been editing. So in a space where you're trying to create this culture of editing, and especially I'm from South Africa, and the whole thing of volunteering is it doesn't really work in, so it's a middle class thing. So and I'm trying, and as I'm listening to most of the talks throughout the conference, I'm wondering, how do I make that work to people that are battling with like basic bread and butter issues, but they've got the knowledge and they've got more information on those indigenous languages than I do. And I've been somewhat, contaminated, for a lack of a better word. And I'm trying to say, how do I get them into this and letting them know that we don't pay for editing. It's something that you do to curate your content to make sure that it stays there even after you are gone.
Thank you. I'll quickly repeat the question just in case it wasn't loud enough. Basically, a great question about finding ways and asking about how other communities or how other people are addressing the fact that volunteering from different places and different countries around the world comes with its different barriers and challenges. And maybe what are some of the ways that this could be addressed or is being addressed? I think this is a great question for both of you to try to maybe give us some sample of what you've worked on when it comes to the volunteering side of things in India.
Thank you, Jack. From my perspective, the best way to work with volunteers for us is to promotion of our regional language. Our aim is in unity, in solidarity, is to promote our language, and for that we join hands to promote content online, to produce quality content online for people who don't have access to it. So we use that to work best with volunteerism. Yeah.
I just want to add one thing. So you can convey the message that hey, you're getting some help. Your Google is providing helping in that. So you can just ask them to you're getting some incentives for that also. So I think that idea that hey, come join us and you're getting something, and those who haven't those resources to write or something, we're also providing internet as well as laptops, as you know. So in that perspective, it can help. That those help can build a bridge the gap of not having the resources and creating the articles.
Can I say something?
Sure.
But I think you bring up a really good point, and I think that's something that we are aware of as we think about how this program scales, which is that every community is different. Every market is different, every locale is different. Every community will react in a certain way to a program or need to be motivated in another way by a program. And so I think, again, to my earlier point, I think Google is cognizant of the fact that the job we have is relatively easy. We can supply hardware and stipends and capital, and I can supply insights into gaps in search all day long. The real work ends in the last mile. Right? So we're spending a lot of time working with Wikimedia Foundation to understand what does WMF and the Wikipedia communities in general need, and can Google play a role in helping support that through some sort of allocation of some kind? Again, I think we do not want to be involved in that process. We don't see that as our role, but we recognize that the last mile is hard. But I think you bring up a really good point, which is community to community to community is going to be a little bit different.
Okay, we have three, Shola. And then Ivan. Okay.
Thank you. My contribution is not it's not a question, neither is an answer, but just a comment. I want to thank the organizer of this concept, because it's a concept that is going to answer solve most of our problems. We have over 600 volunteers, active volunteers, minimum of 50 per universities in Nigeria. And the challenges that we're having are, many of them, 80% do not have computer for contribution. 2, there are no internet. Even when you have computer, you do not have internet. And our local languages, we have gaps of people contributing to them. Yes, they even want to contribute, but then we don't have devices. And
was next? I think Ivan was next.
And then, yes, I'm. No, you first? I'm very happily surprised that when you open the Google search here in South Africa, you have 6 options of languages different from English. This is very good thing. If in Mexico I work in the deployment of this project, Google will be supportive to add more indigenous languages on the search. I don't know if it will be possible, because in Mexico Google only works in Spanish. So I don't know if it can be possible to have more languages in Mexico.
Yeah, I can't speak to that myself, but it's something I can take back. I can say that Google recognizes those gaps and is working as fast as it can to fill them. But I don't know what that roadmap looks like, but it is something I can take back.
Okay, thanks so much. We have 4 minutes left.
Okay, I would like to congratulate the India team for such a successful project. I think it's a great initiative. But what I would like to find out from Google and the foundation is that looking at African continent, we have diversity, we have languages in the African continent that needs to be preserved. But due to lack of resources such as internet connection and then computers, most of them are not encouraged to document their local languages. So if there could be a project in place to support them and encourage them to be able to preserve their local languages, I think it will go a long way to help us. I am trying to move into the local language Wikipedia in Ghana because it's very inactive. We have just 8 users, and I believe people are not contributing in that sector because they don't see the need. Why would I want to document my local language if there are not many people using the internet who cannot even access something that I'm preserving? So I would really, really like Google and the WMF to do something about that. Thank you.
I'm a student in University of Cape Town. Sorry, maybe I missed some of your talk because I joined the session late. Basically, I belong to Jammu and Kashmir state of India. And surprisingly, yesterday I found that there is no Wikipedia in my language. My language is Dogri. So there is no Wikipedia. Some 5 or 6 documents are there just in incubator, and somebody edited them in 2015. And after that, there is nothing. So I'm just curious what kind of help or support I can get from you people just to promote my language. I have seen the Punjabi or other languages have contributed a lot. So I have volunteers, those who can contribute, who are willing to contribute, but they don't know how to go. So please provide me some insights or something. Thank you.
I hope we have talked yesterday. So okay. So what actually this is a completely different question from not completely different, but somehow related. But you can start. You can arrange volunteers so that you can work on your language that is an incubator, and if the growth of the language on Wikipedia grows, then you can go live and all those things. Recently there are different languages. We have helped some languages like Santali, and they're going to live, and that can happen for your language too. So so as a volunteer perspective, I can say that if you bring more volunteers who can contribute to your languages, then I can assure you in your language can be present in Wikipedia as a live Wikipedia. That's what I can say as a volunteer perspective.
I just wanted to address both your comment and your question as well. I think what you brought up is an important sort of motivator behind this program for us. I think if our perspective is, if beyond the business piece, right? I mean, you could argue that a healthy web environment foundational level, though, Google does believe that if the voices of those communities are not heard, if those individuals come online, let's face it, there are millions and millions of people every month that come online. This is their first computer. This is their first experience. And if the web does not represent who they are, then the only place they have to go is to get pushed into a few platforms that are largely, let's be honest, Western dominated. And their voices are not heard. And so there is a moral good to having a healthy and relevant web ecosystem that represents the native languages, cultures, and perspectives of the people that are on the ground. And so like, at the base level, that's the motivation that Google has in this program, is that if people come online and the web does not work for them, then they're pushed into platforms that ultimately don't necessarily represent them. And they're also pushed into platforms that, frankly, it's a lot easier to then constrict their voice because you're in a single place. So distributed content in a healthy web ecosystem is good for everybody. It's like we believe that, and I think that's the motivation for this program. For your question in the back about additional languages, this is a huge hill to climb. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of languages, and we're having to just kind of go down the list and go after the ones that we can and move as quickly as we can and figure out how this program can scale. Because we know that your community needs it, we know your community needs it, but we're having to kind of prioritize and figure out how we can go after these things the best we can, as quickly as we can. So scaling will be a challenge, but I think it's important for you to understand why we're in it, because we do believe it matters.
Great, thank you Max, thank you Rupika, thank you Gian, thank you everyone for attending and your questions. This was a great session. I think we are done, we're out of time, so appreciate you spending the 30 minutes with us. Come find us over the next couple of days or so, continue to chat with us. Some of us have to run to another presentation, and I think the room is taken over right now, yes? All right, thank you.